Hi, it's Anika from Living for Later, and I want to talk about comparing our spouse to other individuals and then not highly esteeming them. One of the things that I realized that I can totally confess was that earlier on in our marriage, I spent a lot of time comparing my husband to other husbands. And the more I compared him to others, the less I was able to see the great qualities that he had. Comparison just really caused just a seed of discontentment to rise up in my heart, to grow in my heart. And again, I missed the beauty that was before me a lot of times because I was too busy wishing he were someone else or that he was like someone else. Sometimes I verbalized the comparisons that were kind of flowing through my mind, and other times they just manifested in my actions, right? And that was not good at all because I didn't highly esteem my husband. And sometimes because I compared him to others, it would cause me to just respond in a way that was very dishonorable. Just quite honestly, I could try to put it in a pretty package, but as I matured in the Lord just began to convict me, and I began to realize that while I can pray for my husband to have certain godly qualities, there's nothing wrong with that. But when I get to the point of just, I wish you were like so and so, I wish you were like that, that's problematic. And as the Lord began to convict me, and I began to just release some of those. And honestly, some of it even came from a place of just false expectations, right? Of, okay, I wish you were like so-and-so, but I couldn't have certain expectations of my husband because our dynamics was totally different than so-and-so. So I find it very interesting that when I began to release the comparisons that were going on in my mind, I began to see the beauty that was in front of me. I began to see how really blessed I was. So as opposed to focusing on what my husband wasn't, the Lord began to do a work in my heart where I began to see all that my husband was, right? And because of that, I began to just really highly esteem him. And I look back in the past where I would shun some of the counsel that he would give me because, again, I was so busy comparing him to others that sometimes I didn't think much of the advice that he had to offer. And now I'm just like, listen, other than praying to God, I'm going and I'm asking my husband, because he is my covering, he is my head, and I highly esteem him, where I'm listening now to his counsel because I'm done trying to compare him to other husbands. And are there times where that it tries to kind of come in subtle ways? Absolutely, but I have to check it because I've come too far now, and I see the detriment again in trying to wishing he were like this spouse, as opposed to, God, I thank you, for who you've blessed me with. And again, just seeing the great qualities and the great strengths that he has. And I have to say this, that because I stopped comparing him to other spouses, or I'm more aware of it and try not to go down that path, I now realize that things that I used to view as a weakness, I now really see them as a strength. It's amazing. For example, I used to want my husband to just always have a response, right? And he's the type to just pause, really process things through, and sometimes it takes him a while to just kind of process through because he just needs to make sure that all his thoughts are in order. And that just used to greatly annoy me because I wanted him to be able to just think quick on your feet, give me a response right away. And the Lord knows that I needed somebody that was the total opposite of me, because it just really helps to balance me out. And we've been in some situations recently where, I have seen where that quality, that trait of his has really, really benefited us greatly, because a couple of times, I've just wanted to just go in and say and do things. And he's like, no, Anika, you pause. You think this through, spend a couple of nights, sleep on it, and then revisit it. And you know, sometimes when he gives me that counsel, I'm annoyed because I'm like, no, I know what I'm thinking and I know what I need to say. But without fail, every time that I've just kind of yielded to his counsel of just calming down and sleeping on it for a while, that most times, you know, I come back and I see the value in it, and I don't end up putting my foot in my mouth or having to go back to apologize because I spoke and I said too much or I spoke prematurely. So in any case, that's just one example again where before I used to think of that as a weakness, but I'm seeing it as such a strength, and a strength that I personally needed, right? God created this man for me, and he is the perfect fit for me. No, he's not perfect, but he is the perfect fit for me. So anyway, I'm going to kind of wrap this up, and I just want to encourage wives and husbands alike to not get caught up in comparing your spouse to others, but see the beauty that you have before you. Yes, we all have deficits. Yes, we all have flaws, but pray about those things as opposed to, you know, feeling like, well, just because you're not here or because you don't have this together, then I'm not going to listen to you or I'm not going to highly esteem you. That's the wrong way to approach it. And I tell you, marriage is just honestly such a beautiful thing. It is a hard thing, but it's such a beautiful thing because as my husband and I continue to grow with each other, I just see how God just knits our hearts even closer together. And like I said, I'm just able now to see just the blessing that I have before me. So I just want to end there and just encourage you, spouses out there, husbands or wives, to just, you know, ask the Lord to help you to not compare your spouse to others and to really see the blessing that you have before you. No, your spouse is not perfect, but I'm sure there is a lot of great qualities that you may be overlooking because you've allowed discontentment to just, you know, come up in your heart. So I just pray and ask the Lord that you would have eyes to see your spouse through different lenses and rejoice in the good. Spend time magnifying the good as opposed to the bad. And this is what I can say. This is so, so true. Once I highlight the good and magnify the good, the areas that may be deficits, the Lord gives me how to pray for them skillfully, and I can come alongside my spouse and we can work on those things together. Both ways, right? So it becomes now a team effort as opposed to me pointing out to you everything that's wrong. But no, let's come together and pray. All right, you be blessed.